This long thin piece is the trunk of the tree. These other pieces are the branches, with one spare piece. Then, in different lengths, 7 other pieces to be cut to size. Finally, there are 4 pieces to make up the feet of the tree. To make the tree, we need a saw, a ruler, a pencil, a hammer, a small packet of glue, 2 different types of nails, a clamp, and some sandpaper. Firstly, to cut in a straight line across a piece of wood, lay the saw on the wood, lining the square edge against the wood, and draw a nice straight line across the piece of wood. Then, with your hand far away from the line, pull back with the saw 2 or 3 times to create a groove. And then, whilst bracing the piece of wood with your free hand, saw back and forth evenly. Try to draw in a nice straight line back and forth. And this will leave you with a nice smooth cut. Now in this instance, we're not cutting straight across the piece of wood, but we're cutting at an angle. So we're going to use a small piece from the top of the tree, lining it up with the edge of the wood, and marking a line. If the line isn't long enough to go all the way across the piece of wood, you can use a straight edge, such as the ruler, or in this case, the back of the saw, to extend the line. If you're cutting something small, and you find that the piece of wood is moving around, you can use a clamp to secure it to the tabletop. Don't tighten the clamp too tightly, it just needs to be secure enough that it doesn't move. Now to cut the angle, you can use a finger against the top edge of the blade to stabilize it. Just keep your finger away from the teeth. Then draw back a couple of times to create the groove, lining up with the line that you've drawn, and saw back and forth, same as before. The main thing is to make sure your fingers are kept away from the teeth of the saw. When we're hammering the pieces together, we've got holes already drilled in the wood. So pop the nails in the holes and holding them gently, give it a couple of gentle taps. And at that point you can move your fingers further apart and hammer the nail in with firm strikes. So now we're going to cut the second branch down on the tree. So we need to measure out 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters from the center line where the holes are and mark an edge. And then measure 50 millimeters or 5 centimeters again to the other side and mark another edge. Now take your top piece, lining it up with the bottom of the wood and with a mark and drawing your line. And then the same with the other side, lining up and drawing another line. Now for branch 3, we mark 7 centimeters or 70 millimeters to the left and to the right of the center line. And again, grab the top piece, line it up to give you the angle and mark one side and then the other. And then continue until you've marked all 6 branches that need to be cut. So now we cut the first piece we marked, branch number 2, and we're cutting this at an angle. As it's a small piece, clamp it to the table so that it doesn't move around. and being careful to keep your fingers away from the saw blade. Then release the clamp, turn the wood around, clamp it again to the table so that you're lined up to cut the other edge. And that's the first branch cut. Repeat this for the other 5 branches that you just marked. For the glue, find a small piece of cardboard so you don't get glue on your worktop. Then give it a little squeeze and using one of the sharp nails, prick the end of the pouch just to create a small hole so that when you squeeze it, you'll get some glue out. So for the top of the tree, decide where you want the first piece. You don't want it too low as the trunk will be visible, but you must have the 2 holes lined up. Mark off the bottom edge with a pencil. Bring over a saw to give you a straight line. Mark it with a pencil. Then get a small piece of glue and put it on the trunk. Place the small branch against the line. Get your nails. And then placing in the first hole, holding it and making sure it's secure, hammer in the first nail. Then the second nail in the second hole and hammer that in as well. If you want to have even spacing between all your branches, you can get one of the pieces that's a foot, place it below the top branch, mark off the bottom edge, and then bring over your next piece, bring it up to that line, piece of glue on the trunk underneath and on the back of the branch, place it against the line, and then hammer in 2 nails, same as before. And then continue down, marking the space, some glue, and then hammering in 2 nails again. And just repeat, spacing, gluing, and nailing until you have all 7 branches attached to the trunk. And that's the main part of the tree assembled. So now the tree is fairly solid, where all the cut edges are, just take your sanding paper and rub down the sharp edges so there are no splinters, no snags, and no sharp points. Remember to sand the back of the tree as well. Place the first foot on the end of the trunk, with the end of the foot lined up against the edge of the trunk as shown, and hammer in the first nail. To fix the second bit of the base, and the nails are halfway through already, but make sure they're not sticking out of the bottom, a little bit of glue on the back. Have the tree along the edge of the table and line up the foot. It should be flush along here and tight against the first foot. and then hammer in the nail. So this is the first foot, and this is the second foot. We have the clamp clamping between the trunk and the first leg. Turn the tree over and hammer a nail through the first leg into the end of the second leg. This time we lay the tree down flat on the table. A bit more glue for the third leg. Again, put it in position, flush against the second leg and aligned with the bottom of the trunk, and hammer in the first nail. Then we clamp the second leg to the trunk. That keeps this straight. You can give it a tap to square it up if it isn't quite in position at the moment. And then hammer in the nails through the second leg into the third. If it's moving around too much, you could try placing it on the edge of the table and hammer down. For the last bit of base, a little bit of glue, line it up flush with the bottom of the tree and the third leg, and then placing the tree along the table this way, you can hammer down the nail into the trunk. Then we just have the extra nails going through into the other feet that we need to hammer in and tidy up. Including one more nail in the back. And the tree is complete.